Well, today is a historic day in the art of wax seals because we have on this call some of the top wax seal artists. These are the women that I most admire in the wax seal space and that I look to and I get a lot of inspiration from. We were talking before this recording a little bit about our own work and how we see the seal space. And I was sharing that I feel like we're in a really unique moment in 2023 and that we're just at the very beginning of wax seal art. When you look back, 5, 10 years ago, there was some marbling of seals, some painting of seals, but there wasn't really anything extra. We didn't have flowers, we weren't adding objects, we weren't painting with different media, or doing like really creative cutouts with the wax. And so when I think about wax seals and the artistry, I just feel like it's in such a unique moment because there's so much inspiration and possibility. And so for this conversation, we're going to get to meet a variety of artists and hear about their art. All of the contact information you'll find in the comments. So as you're going through, be sure to follow, obviously like and share this video and tell your friends. And then if there are questions too, put them in the comments and be kind of a fun interaction that we'll be able to get to from this video and continue speaking with all of you. So a little bit of background about me. I'm Kay Collier. My artist name is Catherine Hastings. I come from a background in art history, studio art, and antique collecting. I came from the world of letter writing. My grandmother got me into letter writing when I was about 5 years old, and it's been a lifelong love for me. And when I was about 19 or so, I did a grand tour in Europe. I went to the Amatruda Papery on the Amalfi Coast in Italy, where I found my first wax seal. And it opened up a whole world for me because all of a sudden I saw how letters could be more ceremonial and that you could think about kind of the 3D quality of a letter in a way that I hadn't before. And then over the past 20 years or so, I've continued to work in wax seals and collect wax seals. I have about 10 years specifically working with antiques. And at this moment, I'm just really excited to be a part of the legacy of wax seals and see how this art grows. That's a little bit about me. B, do you want to share some about you and your business as well?
Thanks, Kay. And I just want to say thank you for having me onto this amazing conversation with this amazing group of ladies. I'm just excited to fangirl and get to talk with everybody kind of for the first time, some of you, not just on Instagram. So yeah, my name's B, and I have a little shop on Etsy called B's Wax Studio. And I mostly sell pre-made wax seals. So that's my main focus at the moment, but branching out into more stationery. And I think like UK, like there's a lifelong love and history that goes behind coming to wax seals. And some of that goes back to being a stationery hoarder since my childhood. And through the pandemic and being distant from some of my friends, got into sending more happy mail, and wax seals came into it. And it's just sort of gone from there, probably gone to an obsessive level, but now we have innovation in wax seals as a result. So who can complain? So yeah.
That's fabulous. And I know the hoarder issue. I've never met a person into stationery that doesn't have more than they think they should have stationery wise, and also never has enough at the same time. It's kind of funny how that goes. Okay, Betsy, would you be able to share some about you and your business?
Yeah, I'm Betsy. My business is B Goods Lettering, and I have a subscription box. So I have a wax seal club and one called the lettering box. And so I've kind of merged, I love lettering and I love wax seals. So I kind of put them together with what I do. And I got started with wax seals. I was actually making a lettering kit for Valentine's Day. And I was like, oh, I'll just add a wax seal to it. And I went to like the craft store and there was no pre-made wax seals. And I was like, and I was just started like looking, how could I make this? Like maybe I could just make them to put in this kit. And then I was just hooked as soon as I started making them, and I was doing it all wrong, like, but it was still super fun. And so that's just kind of how I got started in it. And I've just been going ever since.
Oh, that's wonderful. And just for lettering, in case people don't know, could you explain what lettering is?
Yeah, so there's calligraphy, which I know how to do calligraphy, but lettering is more I do like modern calligraphy, you could say. So it's less structured and more loose, you could say. But yeah, so I just teach like the art form. So I mostly teach that in like local workshops, and sometimes online. But I've been lettering for almost 6 years now, and I love it so much. So I'm just kind of combining my two favorite things right now, lettering and wax seals.
That's really beautiful. I can so relate to that too. It's like you have your one area you kind of work in, and then it inspires another. And I feel like so much of like the handmade and artistry that goes into a lot of seals opens up other passions. That's also probably why people have a lot of stationery that can't confine it, because there's so many directions you could go. Okay, Larita, share a little bit about you and your business as well.
Okay, so the way I got started in wax seals was I've always loved mail. I've always loved like packages and that kind of thing. I've always loved paper crafts. So about 1.5 years ago, I was scrolling through Instagram and came across one of your videos, and I was like just totally entranced because it was everything I love about everything. Like it was the mail art, it was the antique seals, it just everything engrossed me. So I decided I was going to just try making one of these clips myself. And so I put together a few little clips of video filming the wax seals. And I was walking with my daughter one day, she saw the videos and she's like, Mom, we're putting this on TikTok. So she kind of mashed it together. And so that's kind of how I started actually doing the wax seals, was making the video. And so I love picking out the music. I love picking out the backgrounds. I love the artistry of making the seal itself. And then I love the fact that it goes on mail, it goes on packages, that I can use it in paper crafts too.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a functional object that's ornamental. It's kind of funny how that is, that you, and also at the same time when I say that, I'm like, but it's not functional. Like it's totally ornamental, but it technically it holds the function of like sealing. And I love too that you mentioned the video as part of the art, because that's something I see as unique to this moment as well. Letter writing, Lord Byron's biographer said that it's the perfect combination of solitude and companionship. He said it more eloquently than that, but letter writing used to be just alone by yourself in a room. And I think there is definitely still a real importance to that with the digital age and how we are so, taken in every direction. But the act of pouring wax slowly and pressing, it can now be shared with wider audiences. And Larita, that's an area where you've really inspired me too, because I see what you've done on TikTok and how it's not just the thing you're making, but kind of bringing in your audience into the curiosity of like, okay, we're going to make a Barbie seal. What are we going to do? Okay, we got the bright pink, but like, okay, we're going to put a shoe and like, we're going to cut that and we're going to put that in the wax. And you don't actually need to hold the physical object to be moved by the art of it. And so that's something I think is just super unique to this time as well, that a wax seal can be so much more than just wax. It's really the process and like bringing people in on the process as part of it too. And we can talk a little bit more about kind of what we each care about within wax seals, but I think that's a really interesting piece for the moment that we live in. Mehek, could you share a little bit about you and the work that you do?
So I'm Mehek from the Letter Alley, and my journey's been like a lot of exploring. Like I started out, so my family, all of my family members have their own businesses, and I was the only one who was just like working like job from job. And I started out in social media marketing, and I always wanted to try finding something of my own, but I didn't know what it was. And we've always traveled a lot, and we've traveled across like Europe a lot, across Asia. And through my travels, like I was really inspired and I wanted to do something with it. And I came across journaling first. So I started making these like journals, like trying to do creative things and use like embellishments. And that's when I came across wax seals and someone's letter, like that was just this thing stuck there. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then like I started scrolling through Instagram and like looking them up. And then I came across your page, of course. Oh my God. Like you've taken it to a whole other level. Like they're literally worlds of their own. So it was more of looking for embellishments for my journals. And then it became an obsession. It slowly like transpired into like an obsession. And like I love it. And it's so satisfying. Like people don't realize it till they try it firsthand, that just how fun it is and like how satisfying it is to play around. And what I love to do with it is to just try new things with it, like just play around with what's around you, like play around with like ribbons, flowers, the little toys that you add on it, the little figurines. So that's kind of been my journey so far. And then I was like, you know what? I want to start designing my own seals, because why limit to like the patterns that are out there? Like in the beginning, what I found was just like the really basic, like flowers and hearts. And I was like, I want to do more with it. So yeah, that's what's brought me with the Letter Alley so far. It's just trying new things and having fun with it.
I love that. And, you know, I think you speak so much to the path of an artist also, where you kind of look at your friends and you look at your family and you're like, huh, like this is the path that seems normal, but there's something else that's calling me. And it's interesting having that, like having your family be business owners, because so much of the path of an artist is also that, but there's something else that's behind it, and like that love of play and exploration. And I see that in your work, Mehek, even just how like I've tried to melt wax on top, and it never occurred to me to just put another material on top to get that look, and how you can do it without ruining the seal. Because like I've had that happen where I'll be an hour into a composition and then I get something just a little too hot and the whole thing is gone. You're just like,
I know.
oh, that's it's frustrating, but you know, it's part of the art of it. Well,
Right.
I'd love to hear too about kind of what wax seals mean to each of us. And I think it's probably so multifaceted. And I'm guessing most of our answers, we're all going to say, oh, and that's also something that means something to me. I would say for me, it's the element of history and symbolism that I find so fascinating, and that we're part of this lineage. You know, wax seals have been around for thousands of years. I have this amazing book that I got from Jean Vintage, one of my favorite antique jewelers. It's 7,000 years of seal history. So we are part of a really old tradition. I think that's fascinating. But also just drawing from symbolism. And I knew that symbolism was important at least in early 18th century. But since I learned that, I've actually learned, well, there was a lot happening in the 1600s. And then actually a lot of symbolism happening in Egypt, with Egyptians seeing kind of a magical quality to seals. And it's something I've really felt for a long time, that there is a ceremonial and kind of magical process that happens when you actually seal something. It's, you know, it's the intention of what you're putting into the world, and there's magic to it. And I didn't realize that that was something that was a part of seal history for thousands of years, because I think it got kind of washed out, and it just became about what something looks like. And so for me, it's kind of honoring that we're part of this lineage, and also really understanding we want to express something. So it could be expressing love, it could be expressing friendship, it could be giving hope, or then just like one of my best friends is really going through it right now, and she saw a lion seal last night, and I, you know, the symbolism that I'd written about the lion seal was there, and she's just like, I just needed that message about bravery and resilience. So I'm going a little bit long-winded there, but those are the things that I'm most drawn to. B, could you talk a little bit about what draws you to wax seals and what they mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, and what you're, as you said, like all the things that you said too, I think you've got that real tie to history. You've gotten me now kind of into collecting those historical seals, and I love the symbolism that goes with that. But I still have that love of the modern seals, and Mehek, your seals, you know, how I can blend them with other things. I just find the combining of the old and the new really fun. And as you say, there's that continuity. And for me, part of it's the size as well. I think since I was a child, I was very short-sighted, still am, big glasses. And so I would paint like really tiny things, like people would find painted pebbles all over the house, you know. So I kind of go back to that tiny format and often just have to take the glasses off so I can see up close, and just having like that little microcosm of art being so small. And I think that's really come out with the gold gilding around a lot of my seals is like a little frame, and just really being able to find out what's the little vignette that's in that really small thing that you can then put in the post and like send to your friend. So I just like the size of the format, and it's kind of less overwhelming, and you can do an entire art piece in one sitting. So that's part of, I think, what draws me to it. And I think definitely in terms of when I started, we were in the middle of the pandemic, shut down, working from home a lot. And be able to go away from the digital world and just do something analog for a while was just really wonderful for me. And, collecting all the different art, other people's art that they created as stamps, and being able to leverage that, I found really exciting as well. So it's evolved a lot. I think if people see how my seals have changed, color is a really big part of it for me as well. The fact you have, how many different colors, and you're always creating new ones, Kay, that I'm always, craving, how you can incorporate the color into the seals as well. And I started out with the marbling that reminded me of Texas wildflowers. I have that kind of Texas theme going through. And how do you make it look like almost an out of focus photograph of a wildflower field? And that's then progressed into the clear wax and using other mediums. And now connecting, I'm going into more like the literary side of things too. How do you use the symbolism and all of the different imagery to then pull out your favorite themes from amazing books that you love? So it's sort of progressing over time, but all of those different themes together.
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. I mean, just the world in a little thing, like also when you mentioned the size, I think a lot of people who've like followed my work in antiques for a while, if they then buy one of my pieces, they're shocked at like how small it is, and not shocked in a way of like, oh, I wanted it to be bigger, but I can't believe that you're painting something that's a half a centimeter and there's a whole scene with trees and everything, because when you see it on Instagram, it's a whole screen, right? And so there's just that sense of scale. And even with modern seals, like my biggest seals, they're about 3 millimeters or 3 centimeters. So they're quite large. But what you can do with that canvas, then again, you're thinking about, well, that's so small at the same time. And Betsy, like, I don't know, even thinking about talking about these fields of flowers, when I see your work, I just feel like it's like a bouquet, and like seeing the colors together. But I'm curious for you, what wax seals mean to you, and what you're most interested in within wax seals.
I think the number one thing, like, I just love how beautiful they are. It's like, I don't know, I just love putting them on gifts and like cards. And I feel like when people get them, it's just so special. Like it takes it to the next level. So I love that. And of course, I love everything with flowers. So anytime, like, how could I put more flowers onto these sills? Because I just love flowers so much. But the other thing I love about sills is like that there's so much to explore still. I've been having fun recently. I get a lot of inspiration from like other art forms. And so a couple months ago, I made a seal that looked like an actual flower because I was watching videos about people making flowers out of clay. And so then I look at videos with people doing stuff with paint or like just different materials. And then I'm like, could I do that with wax? And most of the time it never works. The flower one, it worked, but usually it never works. So, but it's still really fun to like explore and see like, how can we stretch the boundaries of using wax in seals? So those are kind of my two favorite parts, or why I love them so much, is the beauty and just being able to explore.
Yeah. Well, and the innovation piece, like, again, we're at the beginning, and it's like a material science thing of like, how far can we stretch this medium? But also, like, hopefully this video will be available in 200 years. And so, somebody's watching this in the future, they'll be like, whoa, they had no idea what this turned into, and like what we can do with wax. And like, even things like you think about using silicone to shape wax, maybe someday there'll be tiny molds to like shape things. And so the whole thing could be wax, where, I've kind of moved to like train models and stuff to get things. But yeah, and I know, Larita, you've also invented new techniques. You're the first person I've seen ever use a Cricut to cut wax. So kind of always innovating there. Tell me about what wax seals mean to you, and why you think they're so special.
So I'm like B in that I've always loved the miniature, tiny aspect of the seals, how it's everything in miniature. Like I said before, I love making the videos. I love the music. I have 6 kids, so I'm kind of a party planner because we do birthday parties for everybody's birthdays, and I like to go all out. So this is kind of like a tiny party, like on a 12 by 12 piece of paper. So that part is really fun to me. It also helps me get really present. So just like pouring the wax, everything just kind of slows down and I get present. And I'm kind of an anxious person. Like I'm not really good at getting present. And so not only do I get present when I'm making the wax seal, but I also notice around me in the world things differently, because I almost look at everything like, how could that become a seal? Or look at the colors in that flower. I want to try to make a seal look just like that flower with the colors. And so that's probably been like the biggest thing for me, is it's been so therapeutic just to be able to get present.
It's beautiful. Yeah. And there's, that's letter writing too. It's like this impermanence and being with yourself and just, taking time to witness. And also, like, I feel like I'm a really impatient artist. Like I remember when I was in college, like I had a friend, Bryn, who would make like 10 hours line drawing. And I'm a really quick artist. So like boom, 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 reinventing. And our teachers gave us separate assignments. She's like, Bryn, you need to turn in 1K. I want to see 40 for you by tomorrow. And like 40, none of them were great, right? But like by the 40th, you were starting to see something. And I think wax seals are part of that. It's like this, it's quick. The wax cools and you got to move. So you have to be with it. You can't be like in another room for 10 minutes while you're working on it. And Mehek, I know you shared some about the exploration and like it's like very like optimistic and like open curiosity when you were talking about it. But what do wax seals mean to you?
They've honestly, like, all ties into like running a business of the wax seals. It's like one big thing like that's like really taught me consistency, because now that I'm like growing like my Instagram and like making more videos, it's like, you know what, I'm going to dedicate myself to this and I'm going to do this like every day. So you end up looking around for your inspiration a lot, and like you kind of force yourself to be like, okay, what do I create next that's like different? So, and another thing I've been really enjoying is tying current trends, not just on like a TikTok person, like an Instagram person, but it's what's around you. Like for instance, like this whole Barbie thing's been going around and all this pink suddenly is like everywhere. And you're like, oh my God, let me incorporate this into like my wax seals. So that's kind of been like a fun journey. And like, I think wax seals is just like one way for me to tie like the world into a little portrait. And just like B said, like it's like the miniature aspect of it is just so lovely. Like it's so tiny, you just get like a thrill of showing someone and being like, it's literally this small, and like look at how much there is in it. Like showing them in person is like a whole other thing, because when you see it on Instagram, like you said, like on video it's like big, but then in person it's like mind-blowing.
Yeah, I know it's interesting how it's like we probably all forget how small it is because that's the world we're in. And then it's like, I don't know, seeing people discover it. I also feel like it's the gift that keeps on giving, because the artist has the experience making the wax seal. Then if they sell the seal or give it to somebody, they have the experience of using it however they want to use it. And if that person ends up putting it on a letter, like if you're doing a peel and stick seal, then it has the whole world it goes through like the postman, like our little post office in Seattle, the postman will be like, hey everyone, I want you to look at this beautiful letter. Like he'll call it out and I'm mortified, right? Because it's like letter writing is very private. But he'll be like, oh man, you should get a discount for this. He's like, I can't do that because I'm a federal government employee, but like, so it goes, it goes through all these people, and then it goes to that final person that gets it in the letter. And just I think also if you're an artist who's like constantly exploring, or if you have like an inner critic's not the right word, but like kind of like a perfectionist piece to yourself. Like I definitely have that. And I imagine seeing the quality of your all's work that you probably have that too. you don't have to look at it, like you get to enjoy it, but then it's fresh and the canvas is blank again. Well, and I can imagine that people watching this are at all different parts of their journey. So we have people that are totally new to wax seals and then really experienced practitioners. And let's open it up. So I'm not going to do like round robin calling on you, but just what advice would each of you have for somebody who's new to wax seals and kind of where to start or things you wish you'd known before you started?
One thing is maybe don't let the wax get too hot. That's something like I've been experiencing a lot where like it gets too hot and then suddenly you've squished it down and like you've got like a massive seal with like this much of like the pattern. And it's like, and then it's like bubbling and you're like worried and you're like, what am I doing? Am I gonna burn everything down? So yeah, definitely once you start seeing it get really hot, like cool it down a bit and then pour. And even with the guns, for instance, when you use like clear wax a lot, which is something I love to play around with, is you keep it on for a bit and then you make sure to turn it off because it's going to start bubbling and there's going to be bubbles all over your seal and you don't want that. So that's one little tip.
Yeah, very practically, like have a little burn kit somewhere. You're gonna burn yourself at some point.
I've had so many times where I'm like, I get touched by the glue gun and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a dangerous hobby, but yeah, you got to be careful.
I think to your point is like having the patience with yourself at first, patience with the materials, with the tools. Because I remember starting out going, okay, how do I, get it to melt to the right temperature? And then, oh, it's kind of going down the page and how do I press it? How quickly do I press it? Like it felt like when I was learning how to drive, like how do you, like all of the nuances of, how do I get the feel of this? And just having that patience, I think at first to realize you'll get it, but it does take practice. But that's the joy of having something that you don't immediately excel at. You get to practice and discover things along the way. And there's a lot of serendipity that goes into it, happy accidents. Some of my best designs have come from things going really wrong. And then I've been able to like go, oh yeah, this thing that I invented, when actually it really, like honestly with like gilding on the clear wax, that came from like I sneezed and the gold foil went onto my seal and I'm like, oh no, it's stuck. And I'm like, oh, it's stuck. And so like there were things that I discovered by really making a lot of mistakes. So that's part of the fun too for me. Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. And yeah, it's like creative accidents and it looks like, wow, what a genius, but it's like, oh, really? That's because there was a bubble and like I need to cover the bubble. And yeah. Also, I think, for beginners, silicone mats are great because wax, obviously you can just remelt it. So, pour, melt it again until you start figuring out the way that you want it. And I think everyone's drawn to different shapes. Like I really love when I see seals that have uneven edges or like even missing part of the edge. When I put them in my shop, I do the full billowy edge because it's so like buttery and delicious and elegant. But yeah, a lot of those, figuring out how you get those seals to look different just happens through play. So I think silicone's a really good way to start. And I think in a lot of our shops, we have the silicone mats that are really pretty. I also just tell people, if you're going to be doing a ton of it, buy a really cheap silicone baking mat off Amazon, cut it into little squares. Cause I don't know if you can tell, but I have just stuff everywhere in here. So having 30 of those is much easier for me than having 2. That's kind of my way of working around it. Larita, given that you'd started about 18 months ago and you've gone.
Going with what, yes.
Go for it.
Okay, sorry, you broke up for a second. I was just gonna go off something that B said as far as being patient. I think when people watch some of our reels, they think that it just happens like that automatically every time you try it. And what they don't know is maybe we failed 4 times before we got to that final one. And there's some movie magic sometimes that goes on in our reels. And so I would echo what B said in just be patient and, start with the simple, just one color press. A couple of other technical things, I guess, that I would recommend is the smokeless tea light candles are like one thing that I buy them in like boxes of 300 off of Amazon because I don't like the soot all over everything. And I'm assuming that's where the soot comes from. I'm not sure, but that is one tip I would have for a beginner. Another one would be to be careful that you're not buying fire lacquer seals, because a lot of times you order fire lacquer seals, or you order a stamp and it looks like it's brass head, but it's actually fire lacquer. And they're a lot harder to work with if you're trying to do some of the more technical things. So
How do you know if something's fire lacquer or not?
well, it's supposed to say that it's fire lacquer if it is. But I have ordered some before that said they were brass and looked like brass in the picture, and then when they came, they were fire lacquer. But they're just not as detailed as the brass heads, and you just can't do like the pour and scrape technique and stuff like that. They're just harder to work with. So
Yeah. It is interesting how when you work with seals for a while, you get kind of an intuitive feel of, okay, this seal will work for this technique, but this one won't. Like that scrape technique, when I was developing it, it took me 3 weeks, and it was all I was working on in seals. I wasn't showing it because I was like similar to Betsy, like talking about making this flower, and like, I see it in my mind, but I don't know if I can create it. It was a lot of cursing and like so much mess. And then finally I figured out the heat of the wax, the timing, the pressing, like it's a very systematic like thing you have to do. But there are certain antiques that are kind of sticky. And I've kind of realized, okay, with this type of metal, I don't know what it is, but these aren't great. And then these work, or like, basalt seals are kind of brittle and they're not as smooth. So I tend not to do peel and the scrape technique on that, which I know is beyond what a beginner needs to know, but just still
right,
kind of realizing not all seals work the same.
right.
Yeah. Well, I know we're getting a little close on time here, but I want to give us a little bit of space to go over what we see as like areas that as artists we're wanting to grow, and then get into kind of the future of wax seals. So I guess I'll go first. What I'm really wanting to create is seals that are part, and again, like talking about the legacy, but seals that can withstand the test of time. And so a lot of the projects I'm working on right now, they're like probably 3 to 5 year projects of trying to figure out how do I create something. For instance, I'm designing some seals that are pretty different. Like there's not a modern seal that looks like what I'm designing. And I've been working with a guy that knows all of the different types of metal work, and even talking about like what types of metal to use. I'll ask, well, what happens to this metal in 200 years if it's in a humid climate? And I'll be like, oh yeah, no, we can't use this metal. Like there's a lot of stuff like that. So for me, I think that's the thing I'm most wanting, is just to create something that is better than what existed in the antique space, which is like a really tall order because antique seals are so well made. I don't think I can necessarily be better than the hand carved seals, but for ones that were metal that were cast, I feel like it can exist and we can do it better than they did it 100 years ago. So that's my big dream, but it's probably going to take a few years to get there. Let's go just down so we all get time to answer. B, what are you wanting for your life as an artist, and how are you wanting to grow?
I'm really starting to be interested in combining the wax seal symbolism and my love of literature, and like working that into other stationery. So I have some planned where it's part of a stationery, it's not just all on its own, it's actually part of like a card or a letter set that's incorporated into the design. But then also thinking about, you've done framing of seals. I'd love to go there with both word art and the seal and the symbolism together. I think just the 3D part with the text art. So I'm gonna have to learn lettering, Betsy. So I'll be signing up for a course sometime soon. So that just bringing those elements together in a multimedia, I really want to explore as an artist that road as well.
Okay, wonderful. And I'm sure we all have some ideas that we can message you behind the scenes on where to go. Betsy, what about you?
I'm most excited, a couple things, but most excited about doing more of my own designs for my stamps. I've done a handful But I really want to have like whole collections that all have a theme around a certain season or time of year, and then create all of those together. I think would be really fun. So that's something that I'm kind of working on and have been thinking about. And then my other thing that I love is I love teaching people how to do it. So I've done a lot of, I've only done a few virtual workshops, but I do a lot of in-person classes, and it's so fun. People who have never made them, they get so excited because it really is such a fun process to make them. And so that's something I just want to continue doing, is just sharing it with people to learn how to make wax seals, because it really is something that's just so fun.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and a big reveal, that's something we haven't talked about, but like you never know what the seal is going to look like until it's cool and you have that click, that you pull it off. That's really beautiful. Larita, what about for you?
For me, I have a couple of things I'm working on. One is a kit that has everything you need to like start this, because that's one thing that people always ask me. It's like, I need everything in one. And we have most of the things that you can choose on my website, but this is like a kit all in one with a custom stamp that I made. So anyway, that's exciting. Also, the other thing I want is I just started this shop in January or February, and I want to get to where I'm making more stamps again, because it feels like the business side has taken over, and I want to actually get back to creating at least once a week, where it's kind of been more like once every 2 weeks or once every 3 weeks even sometimes. So that's where I'm wanting to get back into actually making them more, and still letting the business like run as it is, but yeah, creating more. Also getting present with where I'm at and realizing how fun everything is that I'm doing. Like how lucky I am that I have a business that I love to package all the packages up. I love like everything about it. I love. And so if I can just get present and realize, like, look at how much fun this is, because that's what I want for everyone in this space, is to have fun.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think like it's just a human thing that we think always about the next thing, and just to really appreciate where we're at. And all of us, all 5 of us have a pull that's like artist, business person, and like kind of feeling them out, and you can kind of prioritize one or the other, and at certain times you're prioritizing one or the other. And I definitely found that like I've wanted to create more content and just like show more stuff, but it takes time, and I've been taking photos and putting them on the website and doing all this other stuff, which is not as glamorous, but it just, someone needs to do it, and I'm the only employee. So that message of just be patient and appreciate where things are at. Because also, I mean, if any of us were to look back 1 year and see where we're at today, there's so much, right, that's here. And then, 1 year forward, it's going to look different as well. Mehek, what about you? How are you wanting to grow as an artist?
I'm actually looking to bring more of the in-person thing to the ceiling, like Betsy said. We're hoping to launch some workshops in like New York City. And I'm also looking to do some exhibitions, because like it's such a tactile hobby, and it's something that you really need to touch and feel and look at. Like over Zoom, it's just not the same. Like everyone's not together, like experiencing it together. So that is something I'm looking forward to. And I'm also in the process of developing a new series on like postal stamps, and hoping to do more with that.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, thank you.
Neat. And the series on postal stamps, are you thinking like in the wax seals, or more like stamps that are
The
like
stamps
postal
will
stamps?
be like, the stamps will be revolving around the theme of like, so yeah, it'll be, I'm
I
excited.
love it. Oh, that's really neat. That's really neat.
Thank you.
Well, before we wrap up, I want each of us just to share like a little bit about what's going on. For anyone that's listening, things that you should be aware of. And again, our contact information is in the notes here, but every one of us has something cool coming up. And so, B, do you want to start and just tell us what's new in your world and what you want people to go explore from here?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what I'm working on at the moment, I'm trying to get out there is a more Regency themed stationery, because I have a collection of some symbolic seals and actually some seals that are the names of characters from Jane Austen books. So that's what I've been secretly collecting in the background. So reveal. So I need to like turn that into an actual product where you can actually buy like a card with the Regency fashion on it. I've really been, if anyone's seen my Pinterest feed, they've seen that. So Regency, Jane Austen, everything is coming there. So come soon.
Okay. So follow, and the best way to follow you, is it through Instagram, email?
Yes.
Do you have email list? What's best?
Instagram is the main place to follow me at the moment.
Instagram. Okay, wonderful. Betsy, what about for you? What should we do next with your business?
My biggest thing is called the Wax Seal Club. And so it's a subscription box. It's every other month and you get a unique stamp and 3 sealing wax sticks. And this coming month in August, it's going to be a custom stamp that I designed. And I actually just got them yesterday in the nick of time. They're like, took a while to get, but I'm super excited. And it's inspired by an like vintage book cover is kind of the inspiration behind it. So it'll be a really fun box. But yeah, it's been really fun. A lot of people who join are already into wax seals, and then a lot of people are brand new people who have never done it. So yeah, it's been really fun. And so the best place to find out about that is just through social media, and mostly on Instagram, but all the social medias I'm on. So.
Okay, beautiful. I can't wait to see the seal. It's I don't know, it's just neat. Like everything that you design when you put in a new seal, they're so sturdy. They last, forever. And so I just love thinking about that full life cycle. Larita, what about for you?
For me, first I have to say about Betsy's wax seal subscription. Yes, it's super fun. Like I subscribe to that, and it's like sending yourself a little present every 2 months. It's awesome. But for my shop, we are releasing Halloween stuff in August. So like every week we'll have new Halloween stuff, and a lot of it I don't like because I hate spiders and I hate stuff like that, but it's gonna be there, and it looks like a real spider. It's a 3D spider and it's spooky looking, which I guess that's what Halloween's supposed to be. So that's what we're doing for August.
No, that's
And you
hilarious.
You can find me most I'm on TikTok and Instagram, but Instagram's where I like put my main focus.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you. And Matt, what about for you?
With me, again, it's like the workshops that are coming up. I'm going to be announcing them across social media, on Instagram, TikTok, or on YouTube, and hopefully exhibitions too. And I'm with Loretta on the fact that it's sometimes you just have to do something that like you're not that excited about, like something that everyone's gonna love. It's like the spiders. It's like you just gotta do it. Ultimately, like it's also partly a business. So you just gotta try new things, and you never know. Like you might just enjoy it. So yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook also.
Okay, perfect. Facebook too. Okay, great. I'll make sure that we have all the contact information there.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, for me, I think, I have some free offerings coming out. The stationery shop is being fully expanded. My intention is that I'm looking at wax seals as kind of like the holistic experience of letter writing. So within the next week or so, all of the French, Italian, Japanese stationery will be added to the shop. And I've included my favorite basic letter writing tools. So like oblique pens, inks, that kind of stuff. But the thing I'm most excited about are two things. I'm creating a thing that's the language of wax seals. It's kind of like the language of flowers, but it's a catalog of antique seals and what their symbolism is and what it means to me. So some of it is the direct thing it would have meant to the Victorians. Some of it's kind of taking that and modernizing it. And the thing that goes along with it that I'm super excited about is a quiz. And so everyone will be able to take a fun kind of personality quiz. It's 10 questions. And then it gives you a seal to think about or contemplate. And then at some point I will have peel and stick versions available, but the goal is really just to get people thinking about the symbolism and have fun looking at some historic seals. So stay tuned. The best way to follow me is through my email list. I have a newsletter called The Epistolarian, and I'll put the subscription link in the notes here. Also, obviously Instagram, I'm there as well. So if it's a direct message, Instagram usually is best. But with that, I just want to thank all of you for being here today. This is the first time that we have all met together. And I said it before we're recording, but I think, when you're a business owner and you're in the same space as people, it can feel a little bit scary to connect, but I have just felt from all of you just a sense of collaboration, generosity, inspiration. And I just feel like there's a little shape in the universe that fits each of us perfectly, and that we're here to help others find this art. And so I just want to thank you all again for not only being here, but just, being an inspiration to me and sharing your art so openly with the world.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been so wonderful getting to know every one of you. And like, seriously, all of your work is like so inspiring. I'm really excited to take this forward.
And I'm thinking maybe in a year we do another conversation and we
Yeah,
see like where
absolutely.
things are at. Wouldn't that be cool? It's kind of
And like a
Fantastic.
throwback.
Yeah, we just
Oh,
status
that was
update.
lucky.
Yeah, thanks Kate, for
Yeah,
bringing
it's
us
beautiful.
together. It's just so great to see everybody, and I just appreciate everybody's separate artwork so much. So
Yeah, thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.